Compensation Committee meeting, August 24th, 7 p.m. And we have Risa Smith-Freed and myself, Mary Thayer, Andy Morris-Friedman, Mark Dunn, Amy Fiden, with us here from the committee. And I want to start by welcoming Amy back to the committee. Amy's been on the committee before and was even chair a few years ago, so it's great to have her. She's the finance representative.
Thank you very much.
And Peter Matusko is an alternate, so if Amy can't make it, they've already set that up to be an alternate. So we appreciate that too. Everybody else is who's been on the committee before. We're going to approve the minutes next time. They're done. Kayla had done them, just haven't gotten them off her computer yet. So we'll do that before the next meeting. Adam, you're here. Do you want to talk about the treasurer's report? And I can share the screen.
Yes. Yep. I'm happy to.
Let me get it right
I
here.
was just putting the finishing touches on dinner, so let me get my camera on. All right.
Let me make this a bit bigger.
So, can everybody see the treasurer's report okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So looking at our updated figures, our open space reserve is currently at 59,623. I should have noted I'm looking in column B for those who aren't familiar with the report. Our historic reserve, we have 60,000. The housing reserve, 268,339. And our undesignated fund balance is currently sitting at $1,751,251. So our subtotal of available funds is $2,139,213. We currently have $560,672 currently reserved for expenditures on ongoing projects. And so that brings our total CPA fund to $2,699,885.
And do you want to mention the revenue side of things?
So our additions from our Hadley tax dollars are $379,498. The state fall distribution remains $149,042. That has not changed since the last time we met. So the subtotal of new funding for this year is $528,540. And then our earnings on investment increased that by a further $62,025. So our total added for this year is $590,565.
And that's
Any questions about that?
I just want to comment that that's less than the last 2 years, both from the state distribution and also from earnings on investments were down some this year too.
Thank you. I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's still a very healthy 590,000, but it is down a little bit. Question for you guys. Adam and I have been going back and forth on something, and that is that the CPA Hadley additions consists mostly of a 3% surcharge, but there's always a little bit, like this year it was about $2,700. There's always a little bit of up and down because people pay that were late paying last year or the year before or the year before, or there are abatements so that people get their money back that they already paid, or there's fees or there's interest. And it's not much money. I used to separate it out and then had combined it into one line, but we're wondering, would you prefer to see, it's usually within a few $1,000s. Would you prefer to see the 3% surcharge separately and then the adjustments, or would you just like to see what Hadley contributes?
It seems to me if you're showing us the big picture here, as long as you have the details on record if needed. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's, you know, Hadley does show a nice progression. Here's 10 years worth. Hadley shows, you know, a nice progression as the tax rate and also the base in town improves and the valuation improves. So that's something that, you know, has shown a nice steady climb. And then the state is all over the place, um, depending on what's happening on the state level and how many people are. Um, a lot of the state money comes from the $50 fee at the registry of deeds. If somebody purchases or refinances a property, they pay that fee. So when there's a lot of sales, that goes up. When there's not so many sales, that comes down. And the higher interest rates certainly had an effect as well. And then the earnings, you know, that that's something I don't think we count on much, because that's there. But there's that one. Um, any other questions for Adam, or do this again? Nope. All right. Thank you, Adam.
No problem.
Let me turn that off and stop sharing. Sorry. There we go. Hi, Diane. Welcome. And Nate's on too. Welcome, Nate and Alan. Shardul.
Is it just me or is there some kind of a high pitched?
I
Right.
hear it.
So do I.
Um,
It's almost like a mechanical cricket.
Exactly.
Yes, I also hear it.
I'll do
Now I don't.
audio. I don't think it's here, but I'll.
Well, it stopped. Whatever, we scared it.
No, I think it's back.
Or I went. Is it back on? Maybe, maybe not.
I think it's intermittent now.
Okay.
I'm going to blame it on Alan.
Okay. Adam, enjoy your meal. All right. The next step before we discuss the applications is it's time to, because we had the new fiscal year, it's time to elect chair, vice chair, or Andy's even suggesting maybe a co-vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. So currently it's been myself as chair, Andy as vice chair, Mark Dunn as secretary, and Adam as treasurer. Our first of all, I'll start by saying, is everybody in those positions willing to continue? Mark and Adam, are you willing to continue
I
on?
would nominate anyone else to be secretary.
It's been a pretty easy job with a land use coordinator, but Mark's doing minutes tonight, so it isn't foolproof.
By the
that,
way, are you using the AI to take minutes? That should be an option, at least it is on our Zoom.
Okay.
It's not always great, but it's a good basis to
Is
fall
that
back on.
the transcript?
Well, that's one option.
Or I don't know how to do this other than that. That's all I see that looks like it might.
Yeah, you can do the transcript, I guess.
We'll see what happens. The record shows on. I'm always hoping. There it is. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens, Mark, but you may
Okay.
still need to edit it.
Oh, sure. Oh, no, it always needs to be edited. It's just
Okay.
something to fall back on.
Adam, are you willing to continue as treasurer? You're muted if you're answering. Oh.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would you like to continue as treasurer?
Oh, yes, I would.
All right. Does anyone else want a position that we've mentioned? especially secretary. All right. Do we have any motions?
Who's
Andy?
absent tonight? I think we should nominate.
Sherry, just Sherry and Ray.
Oh, then I could nominate them as secretary. Just
Okay.
kidding. Just kidding. That's not nice.
Um,
So Andy, did you make a motion or was that a second?
I'd make a motion to re-elect all officers as a slate with a single vote.
I'll second that.
any discussion? All right, all those in favor, I'll do the roll call. Amy?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Risa?
Aye.
And I'm aye for Mary. Okay. All right, we're going to start with thank you everyone. We're going to start with the DPW application. Alan Weinberg is here to present that. And Alan, would you like to talk some about tonight we're not voting on any of these. We're having you present them and have discussion, and then at our September 14th meeting we'll take a vote whether to recommend each application or not. And once we recommend it, usually it goes on the warrant and it's voted on at the fall town meeting, which is October 22nd this year. Alan, go ahead.
Okay, so tonight I'm wearing my cemetery committee chair hat, and I did distribute, or I sent around the proposal. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at it. So the cemetery committee and the DPW have been working on getting our cemetery maps and records digitized and scanned so we don't have to use the paper records and maps, which we have, and the maps in particular are in pretty rough shape. And a lot of the information about burials and ownership and things of that sort are or have been scribbled or written on the maps themselves, which is not really great. And the maps, again, as I said, are not in great shape. So what we want to do is modernize the system of record keeping and keeping track of things, and at the same time having these records, which go back a couple hundred years in some cases, in a situation where we don't have to handle them. We can just let them be preserved, and we can use the paper. I'm sorry, the digital. That's basically what we are looking for. This would be for all 5 of the cemeteries. There are, in some cases, there are multiple maps for each cemetery. The one you're looking at there is the new section of the Old Hadley Cemetery. That map is fairly new compared to the other ones, but still, because it's the most heavily used, where we're selling lots still there, and we are having burials more frequently in this area than in any others. It's in pretty bad shape. And I think we are asking for 40,000.
And what will the 40,000 do, Alan?
It will scan and digitize the maps and the records. Two separate operations, really. But the end result will be for each cemetery will be a map, actually a GIS map, similar to what you see for the assessor's maps, where you can click on a lot and then up will pop the information about, or the information that we have about who owns the lot, what size it is, who's buried there.
Do people have questions or?
We couldn't hear who that was. Did somebody ask a question?
I don't know. It might have been some background.
Alan, would this be this ArcGIS? This would be software that would be controlled by the DPW? Or, I mean,
Yep.
it didn't look like the tie and bond included putting it on the web so that the public could use it, but I wasn't sure.
Well, it has to be administered, managed by DPW. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, could it be put online? Yes, it could be. I don't know if that's and that wouldn't necessarily be an additional cost. It would be just a decision, I think.
Okay.
And I think that the thinking is, let's see what we can, how good this final product is, and is it usable, and is it user friendly, so to speak. And then we'll see. And going forward, I really can't. And that's a DPW's decision, not a committee chair, a committee decision. But I imagine that there's a good chance that at least parts of it would be available for somebody to just look at it on the town website at some point.
Right.
Can't guarantee that.
Right. No, it
Part of the
sounds
motivation for this is that Gary Berg has been doing the burials and has a real good sense in his head and where to look and what to do, and he's retiring at some point, and there's just feeling like it's a huge task to try to make it so that, you know, a burial, you may need to know the information in 2 days, and you know it's not necessarily being able to research a long time, or so this would make
Yeah,
it.
as Mary knows, we've been talking. The committee has been talking about this for several years, but the fact that Gary will be leaving has kind of increased the sense of urgency about getting this in shape.
and it would save and preserve those paper documents, which are
Right.
deteriorating, right?
Yeah.
The maps and the cards themselves. And it will also maybe show where more research is needed, if there are gaps and questions and stuff like that, so that seems hopefully less overwhelming. Andy?
Um,
I should mention that this is not new ground for CPA money. There are other towns who have done this.
well, this is a project that I support, and it's important to keep the town cemeteries functioning and not to rely on one person's memory to keep things going. But the two, I don't know, I don't know if they're reservations, maybe they're questions I have is, I definitely see how this helps the DPW. But I'd like to expand the public benefit by somehow making it part of the agreement that in a certain time, this information will be available online. I know some people in the DPW are concerned that it might not be accurate, the information might not be accurate enough to release to the public. But I think that that's an important part of the CPA mission, is to increase the public benefit as much as possible. So I don't know if you could address that. My
Yeah,
second
well,
question
I-
is,
go ahead.
there wasn't much in the proposal about the preservation of the actual documents. And that's something that I also feel is very important. You might think of them as, just index cards or just scribbles on pieces of paper, but historians work for hours trying to find scribbles like that on historic documents. And I'd like part of this project to be you to preserve those documents, to have, acid-free boxes and, an index of where to find such and such and that kind of thing. So if you could either address those or come back to us next week.
I
Next
can address
meeting.
them now.
Okay,
I can address them now.
please do.
Your second question I'll address first. Yes, it does. The plan is to store the documents in archival enclosures, boxes, binders, what have you. That is actually not a big expense. Okay. We, Ty and Bond developed a proposal on short notice, so we could get this in. But we're also asking another company to give us a similar proposal, and that would include the archival storage of the cards and actually the deeds. These are actually important, and the maps, but it's not a major undertaking, really, to be honest with you. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars, not thousands, to
No
get
pun
that done.
intended.
So yeah, that is part of the ultimate plan that the money, the 40,000, would pay for. So I hope that answers that question. Yes, we are aware of that need to preserve, to fully preserve the paper documents and maps. The first question about making it accessible to the public is, yeah, that would be wonderful, but it's actually the most important priority is to preserve the records. Okay, whether they're accessible to the public or not. I mean, there are many records that are not online that are preserved. And the way it works now is you go into the town clerk's office or you call up DPW and you say, could you tell me if my Aunt Minnie is buried in Old Hadley and where? They look it up and they tell you. I mean, I do this all the time. And I'm happy to do it. And it would make my job and DPW's and the town clerk's job a heck of a lot easier to get that information to the public if we could simply fire up our computer and look it up and then maybe do some verification, some QA/QC, making sure that the various records, match up, and then get back to that person. So I think it's not perfect, but it's good. It's a good system, or it would be a good system, and I think we would be addressing that benefit to make things accessible to the public. I mean, there's direct accessibility that they can look at, like they do with the assessor's information, and there's accessibility in that you can get an answer very quickly from whoever you speak to in the town hall without actually you going onto the computer. So I think there's a range of accessibility options there. But I agree with you, Andy, about being a benefit to have people be able to get that information quickly and easily.
The GIS system is part that the sewer department or the DPW has is the GIS system that's used for the sewer, correct? So, and they
Yeah,
can
and you
piggyback
can't,
off
and you
of
can't,
that.
right? And yeah, but you can't yourself go online somewhere and look at that. You have to ask them,
Right.
and they'll get back to you on it. Yeah.
So I don't know even how easy it is to make it public if the sewer records are not.
Oh, it would be I'm pretty sure it would be a separate, um, a separate layer or GIS layer or a separate, it might be on the same platform, but it would be a
Right.
separate product, I guess.
Okay,
We again, this we haven't done it yet, so we don't know exactly, the nuts and bolts and the fine tuning of it.
I
Well,
can understand. Go ahead.
I'm
Ed.
kind of envisioning something on the town website where you can, put your mouse over the gravestones and a little, window comes up and people can upload pictures or informations about their ancestors, and it can
That-
become a treasure trove of information about history. I mean, sure, it's nice that the DPW will get back to me in 2 days with the new system instead of 2 weeks with the old system, but I'm kind of looking bigger.
I'll just add on that I was on one hand thinking, well, let's get it up to the usability to preserve the documents first, and then we can look at the public facing access. But I then on the other hand, I thought if we do that, there's a chance that the first step could be done with software that wouldn't lend itself as easily to the second step. So if we can express that to the DPW and the cemetery committee, that is something we would like to see, whether it's phase one or phase two. We would like their choice of software to ultimately support public access of searching the documents.
Any other comments or questions at this point?
Oh, how long do they think the digitizing will take?
Actually,
We
I
have to
think
go through
it's
the procurement process.
yeah.
The procurement process is probably the most time consuming. From my understanding, again, we haven't done this before, but from what my understanding is, it can be done in a few months, not years, and not days either.
And I think if I read correctly, they're not doing, they're not scanning the 1,500 cards. They're expecting the town to, but
Yeah, they are.
they're gonna attach the information to the
No, no,
ArcGIS.
yeah. No, they're right. That's why if you look at their, it's less than $40,000.
Right.
We're asking for more so we can not have to do the scanning ourselves.
Gotcha.
Oh, you don't want to do that. It's very difficult work.
Here's the bill for $810 to scan 3,000 cards. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be more like $2,000 for the 5,000 that
Okay.
we
of the
think we
cards.
have. But we're not, it gets a little complicated because there's scanning and there's scanning. So what's the final product look like? Is it searchable? Can you edit it? Or is it simply just a PDF? All of those will work, but they may not all be possible. And there'll be different expenses. So we'd look at all those things and see what makes sense, what we can do, what we can afford within the budget.
Great. Anything else? Well, thank you, Alan, very much. And I know you'll talk to Scott.
Is there anything you need from me for next time?
maybe some discussions with Scott on the possibility down the road of it being
Homework
something that
here.
could be accessible to everyone online, but through the
Yeah.
hadleyma.org or something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
If they were to agree to that, I'd be an unqualified yes on this.
And I can understand having a break-in period where the DPW and town hall gets used to the system before anything's gone farther, just to and trying to see how accurate everything is. And it's something that'll become more accurate over time as things are discovered and figured out. All right. Well, on to the next. We have Shardul Palmer here with his application for the 7 affordable units, part of their 50 and over, or 50 unit property they want to do. Welcome, Shardul.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about your project?
Yep. Shardul from our 70 Tomorrow Road. So our family, we are planning on doing a 50 unit over 55 apartment building at 41 Russell Street, the Hadley Village Barn Shops. We were approved by the planning board earlier this year. The building is roughly 60,000 square feet. It will have all 2-bedroom units. All of the bathrooms are going to be ADA accessible. We'll have amenities such as on-site fitness center, community room, EV charging for cars. And this really is something that it hasn't been a product that hasn't really been developed in the Valley. You can see throughout, whether you look at in the Hampshire County, there hasn't been any real development of over 55 apartment units. There have been some condos, but we're really going after the over 55 community that might be able to sell their homes, but they don't want to go and buy into another asset that they're going to have to maintain. They're going to have to possibly have a mortgage on and have, again, an asset that they're going to have to dispose of eventually anyway, or somebody who has. This gives the over 55 community flexibility on what they do with those funds, on where they want to live and how they want to live. We're obviously going to do all of the maintenance on the units. We're responsible for that, all the appliances, all of the equipment, outside maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. And as part of the requirements in Hadley, 15% have to be affordable. So 7 of the units are affordable units where our affordability is 80%, which is roughly for a person, a 2-person is about $84,000 in our area, which about 400, based on the census data, there's about, just in Hadley by itself, there's about 400 over 65 residents in Hadley, which would qualify for that affordability requirement. The way that we kind of came up with our ask is that I know that I kind of looked at what was done in the past, and there really hasn't been anything similar in terms of requests. But I approached it in a way that understood the cost of bringing these units online, and all of the units in the building are completely identical. The affordable units and the market rate units, there's no difference. They're going to be evenly distributed throughout the building. So there isn't a certain section of the building that are going to have affordable units. These are all going to be distributed evenly throughout the building so that there's no placement or that they're in a more or less desirable location. And the cost is in terms of the rent, I should say, is about 40% less. Market rent right now for a 2-bedroom apartment, similar quality, is about $3,100, while the market rate based on the HUD and Massachusetts guidelines for a 2-bedroom apartment in our area is around $1,750. And that's set by the state. It's something that we have to comply by. We also have to go and do ongoing certification. So every year we have to go through a process of maintaining lists and qualifying all of the affordable residents for the units, which is this is the first time we're doing it, but based on what our attorney has said, it will cost thousands of dollars a year just to go and maintain that affordability requirement that is imposed. The cost, and this is just hard construction costs, it really doesn't include some of the soft or land cost, is around $300,000 a unit to bring those units online. What we looked at is understanding kind of 5 bedrooms on how 40% of that amount, which is pretty significant because 300,000. If you have a 40% reduction, you're talking about something $120,000 a unit. I thought that was
Hi, Sherry.
that was a little excessive. So we kind of looked at it
the
as a
link?
per bedroom requirement, and more of a prescriptive way of looking at it in terms
Passcode
of
is
overall.
337408. Sorry, Sherry's trying to get on. 337408.
Mary, could you mute yourself while you're doing that?
So I looked at it as a prescriptive way of doing affordability and saying that for every bedroom that's being created for affordable unit, I came up with a number of around $50,000, which is about 30% of really the cost of a unit. And so which for every unit is 2 bedrooms, so it's about $100,000. And so that's what our request is based off of. And again, what we're going to be using those funds for is for directly for the construction of each of the units. So that's our primary use of the funds. I know it was a little all over the place, but I think I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at the proposal and if they have any questions regarding our proposal and how we came up with some of the numbers that we did.
Mary, you're muted.
I don't see Sherry yet. I'm sorry she's having trouble getting on. Does anyone want to? I do have some feedback from Stuart and somebody from their housing as well. But does anyone have thoughts to begin with?
Well,
I have a question. That's
Risa, go ahead.
Shardul, is there a time period? I know there were for developers some process with loan funding that you had to have it be the units to get a HUD loan. I don't know if that's your situation, but it was like 25 years or something. How long would these 7, you said, affordable units remain as affordable units?
As per the planning board, they would be deeded as affordable
Okay,
in perpetuity.
good.
And that would probably have something like as long as it was still an apartment building, or, I mean, there would be perhaps something.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't anything but that.
Mark, you were going to say something?
I think we all have to mute because we're getting echoes. I have mixed feelings. I'm very much in support of this project and I supported it on the planning board. I was frankly taken aback when I saw that they were looking for the support for the 7 units that they're proposing. That the 7 units actually comprise 14%. So I was thinking that there'd be 8 units to get over the minimum 15%. And I had approached the Parmars about using funds like this or the Affordable Housing Trust to go higher than what was required as their minimum. So I was a little surprised that they were coming to this to support them to meet the minimum requirement that they need to go forward with their project. That's just the thoughts I have.
I guess my rebuttal to that is that Hadley has never spent, from what I can find, any money on creating affordable housing, and it's only allowed other developers to pay into it to skirt the rules. I think this is the first time that if Hadley is really serious about creating affordable housing, that these monies will be distributed to a fully approved project, but also developers who are Hadley residents, and also creating a pretty substantial amount of housing in Hadley relative to what has been created in our town, which is really zero in the last 25 years.
Mary, if you're speaking to us, you're still muted.
I can tell I'm not used to turning it off. I do have feedback from the Community Preservation Coalition people. I can read to you, but I wanted to give people in the committee a chance to say what they'd like to say also first. So Stuart Saginaw is the executive director, Shardul, of the Community Preservation Coalition. And we pay dues in every year to them, and they're a great resource. So his comments are similar, I think, to what Mark was saying. He said, if Hadley requires the 15% to be affordable, why are they asking for CPA funds to meet that requirement? It seems like the cost to do that should be on them. A better use of CPA funds would be to get the developer to put more affordable units in the development above the minimum requirement, like if they were doing 10 instead of 7. He suggested considering hiring a housing consultant with our CPC funds to help us understand the application and overseeing the complicated details. And then he suggested that we contact people at the Massachusetts Housing Partnership who are also a resource for the state to be able to give some feedback. And he said that I asked about the public benefit, and he said that the public benefit for all affordable housing developments comes from the fact that affordable housing deed restrictions will be placed on the units after construction, and the town will own those restrictions. So that's the benefit, is there'll be affordable, those 7 units available. And then the CPA senior housing defines it as over 60. So if this were to go forward, that's something that they need to figure out how to mesh that with the requirements of their over 55. And so I did contact Shelley Goldring of the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, and she talked to me about the project as well, and she says she put it in writing and emailed it to me. She said, as we discussed, Chapter 40B in Massachusetts requires that at least I asked her if 15% was a reasonable amount the town requires, if that was common, and she said Chapter 40B in Mass requires that at least 25% of the units be affordable at 80% AMI. And she said even at 25%, the market rate units are intended to subsidize the affordable units. And for an inclusionary or special zoning policy that requires 15% of units be affordable, the market rate would also typically subsidize the affordable units. She said for a 50-unit property, she was surprised that CPA funds were being asked, that the market rate ones typically are enough to cover the ones that have the 15% that are affordable. She said there may be necessary exceptions if the proposed development is very small, like 10 units. The 15% threshold may be too high. And I would think that 50 units would be large enough development to support 7 affordable units. If this is not the case, the developer will need to submit a pro forma explain why the affordable requirement is infeasible without public funding. And then again, may want to hire a housing consultant to help us review this. Since CPA funds are public resources, the CPC and town have the fiduciary responsibility to make sure those funds are reasonably invested. It sounds as if your board is asking appropriate questions to help you determine if this development really requires your support. So that's some feedback from them. And, she said there may be a reason why, if there's exceptional costs or exceptional things above normal, but she said usually the market rate are enough to cover the affordable units, and towns with 15% or even at the 25% if it was a 40B property. So that was their feedback. And we can, I guess, Shardul, some of that is, why isn't the market rate enough to cover having the 7 affordable? I mean, looking at the whole package. And that's not for you to necessarily have on the top of your head, but just some more information, and why doesn't it flow on its as a standalone with just the 7 or 8, however that.
I think you have to look at in terms of the, for the most part, this is a break-even project for us at best. So we're doing this, as a long-term project. What we were, Hadley has been, the CPA especially has been, I guess, given these funds to go and use for affordable housing projects, which to the state have never been really, I think all but one project has been funded at a fairly nominal amount. As far as the, also there was a question about over 55 affordability. I believe the requirement is any affordable housing, and there's no over 55 requirement by the CPA that the money has to be used for affordable housing, whether it's 55 or below or above. So I feel like we already fulfill that requirement, seeing that we're creating affordable housing for really people above 60, but also people below 60, which or at 55. As far as the is this required for us to go and do better than break even? Yes, You know, that's really our intention, is to create this product for Hadley, for the benefit of the residents in the area, to go and have these units be affordable. It just helps cement the success of this facility long term. The affordability requirement is, in terms of the rents, is pretty drastic. And as far as you look at that's the reason why many people have asked and are continuing to ask to pay into a system where they don't have to create these units. You know, there's a request right now for a development on Middle Street, or for that exact reason. They don't want to create, because their numbers are kind of difficult to make it a successful project. I think in general, the town needs to have a better approach instead of the way that it's currently doing, because again, there's a lot of talk about doing studies and consultants and everything, but it just, for small developers like us, it just creates more bureaucracy and more effort for us to do something when there's definitely a need out there and we need to create more of these units.
The 60 is for senior housing. That's how CPA defines senior housing, is 60 and above. So it wasn't affordable. It was what they consider senior housing. And CPA rules are a little different from a lot of other rules. So that's just to point out. Sherry's got her hand up. Sherry, go ahead. You're muted.
Yes, thank you. I understand the need for affordable housing and senior housing. Both are needed. I do want Shardul to know that we have put quite a lot of CPA funding into Golden Court to sustain Golden Court. So we are definitely helping affordable housing in this case. My concern is, after reading through all of that paperwork, that we would be giving them $700,000. And if down the road, and that's to offset their costs now, but if down the road they decided to sell, would that mean that those units would remain affordable? Would it mean that Palmar's would make this profit after having received the $700,000 from us? I don't see how we could do this without a deed restriction, so that the future is settled as well.
There will be a deed.
There will be a deed restriction.
Well, you have to file that with us.
It's part of
It's part of
planning
our
board
planning
permit.
board permit.
There's a separate process, I believe, that you have to go through with us as part of the CPA. If you go through the paperwork that we have, it does, one of the things it asks for is the deed restriction.
But
But
the
it
deed
asks
restriction
for
is through the planning board. In the town of
In the
Hadley
town
will
of
have a
Hadley
deed
will have a
restriction
deed
on those
restriction
units.
on those units.
It asks for a
It
deed
asks for a deed
restriction
restriction
filed at the
filed
registry
at
of
the
deeds,
registry of deeds,
and the town has to
and the
approve
town has to approve
the restriction.
the restriction.
But
But
it's it's the
it's the
farmers that would
farmers that
file
would
it, but it has
file
to
it,
be
but it has
approved
to
by
be
the
approved
town.
by the town.
But it would have to be in effect when we approve funding, wouldn't it? That was my understanding, that we could expend no funds until it was in effect.
There would be a
There
grant
would be a grant agreement
that would spell
that
out
would
that
spell out
requirement
that
and the
requirement
timing.
and the timing.
If that's
If
approved at
it's
town
approved at
meeting, that
town
would be
meeting,
part
that
of the
would be part of
conditions,
the
that there'd be a
conditions, that
grant
there'd be a
agreement
grant
satisfactory to the select
satisfactory to
board
the select board
and the town
and
attorney.
the town attorney.
Sherry, can you mute?
Sherry, can you mute?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if everyone could mute and just unmute when they're going to speak, because it's getting really hard to understand with all the feedback.
Andy.
Yeah, headphones also works to eliminate the echo. Shardul and I had a really good talk about this project. And like I think many on the committee, I really support the creation of affordable housing in Hadley. We've done a lot to keep Golden Court working, but the CPA set aside is to create new units. That's the goal. Are there any other projects online in Hadley that you know about that will increase the number of affordable units in town?
I only know of the two that are being proposed, but again, I think both are, one is condos, which are being sold, and the other one, I don't know if those are apartments or condos, but there has been more discussions about paying into the system to go and not do those units more than creating the units. We're actually the first developer in Hadley, and again, over 20 years, that's actually going to create new affordable housing units in town. I will also say this, that we're doing this, obviously we're business people, and there is there's a profit motive. I'm not going to go and say this is all altruistic, but there is also the fact that this is something that we've helped create to go and again create, we were very integral in helping bringing this new bylaw into the town to help spur more development. I don't think that you're going to get a lot of new development by small developers like ours who are really going into this from anew. This is something we've built hotels and we've done well with them, but this is something new that we're going into, and it's quite different in terms of how the financing and economics work, and it's definitely a challenge. More challenging than hotels to a certain degree. In terms of the compliance, in terms of a lot of different things, where you can go, you're not able to go and have the rent increases as markets would dictate, where you are limited by an authority on what you can and can't do with those units.
Well, I think that it's fine to pay into a fund, but that does not create the new units that people are going to need to live in. And I think that since you are planning to build this development with the affordable units, that you need to give this some serious consideration, which I'm sure the committee will. The difficulty that we're having is that in general, CPA funds are used to get extra. And that's what we heard from the coalition, that the law mandates that you have a certain number that are affordable. I guess we're subsidizing that, right? To help you bring the project to fruition. People will ask that we're giving you money to subsidize something that you have to do anyway. I don't know if there's an answer to that question. Would you do the project? Well, let's say we decided to give you half. What would that do to your project?
In terms of our project, would it move forward? Yeah, we would. Meaning it's not like it's giving half will definitely improve the situation. It's not like it's not it won't improve it, but it will, the entire amount again help set a better precedent for future developments, so that future developers who are looking to go and create this housing or looking at developments can say, okay, this is the method. Here's a very prescriptive method where it's based on bedrooms, and it's a way that somebody can go and, as part of their capital stack, go and say, okay, the CPA is providing this amount of money for every affordable bedroom created. That way, so that somebody who is a prospective developer, even a small one, who maybe whether it's 10 units or it might be another 50 units, this will help them go and say, okay, here is a funding source that I can go and comfortably rely on if I meet the criteria to go and create this housing. I think if Hadley wants to go at it on a case by case basis, it's going to be difficult especially for the person who's doing 10 units. This is already difficult for somebody like us who are, not big developers, but smaller developers, family owned local developers who don't really rely on outside capital from different sources or partnerships or so on and so forth. It's and we're doing something that's very novel. This isn't a tried and true. Uh, there isn't a lot of these apartment buildings coming up for a reason, but there is risk involved in this project, reducing our capital, the amount of capital that we have to go and set aside for these units definitely helps reduce the risk that we're taking on this. And I think when you go and look at other developers, whether it's the Parmars or some other person in town that has property that could be redeveloped, that might not be in the tax system as really producing enough tax income, they can use this as part of their analysis to go and do this, because it just reduces their risk going forward.
I guess one successful project makes future projects more likely.
I think that you also have to make it, and this is just me almost as a resident, as also as a developer, you have to make it simple enough for people, because you look at a lot of these lots that are in Hadley, they're owned by families, Hadley families. And for them to go through kind of this very drawn out, very complicated process, they might not have that capability. But to have something where it's easily to understand, they know what they're creating, it's simple algebra of, I'm creating 10 bedrooms, I can get, this amount of money. I think that makes it simple for a lot of people. If you're creating that level of affordability, or if you're creating, you know, a project of any size to that matter. I think that's what I struggled with with this application. And I had a conversation with Nate also about this, and I gave him my ideas, and this is kind of my thought process of how a system that could be utilized to go and spur more development of these units, affordable units, especially in the senior corridor that we just created.
Well, public-private partnerships are how things get done these days. So I understand that. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you. What if we adapted the proposal to make it more traditional for CPA use, where you increase the number of affordable units over the minimum requirement, and CPA money was used to offset those costs? Is that something that you would consider?
I think it would be something we would consider. I wouldn't say no to it. It's I think it comes back to the risk and how much added risk there might be with more units. that are that the rent is going to be is discounted by about 40%, and how much of that is going to go and impact, because the one-time reduction of capital is just the beginning. When somebody has to live with this restriction in perpetuity, that's 40% of income for the rest of the project's life, and you have to go and really look at what's the reward 30 years from now, not just the immediate when it's initially brought into service.
Well, this is a very complicated project and the biggest project that CPA has handled, if you get all that you've requested. And we're considering, as Mary said, about getting some sort of help, just so we can make sure that the project goes forward in the proper way. Because if we mess it up, then there'll never be another one in Hadley for sure. But that's going to take some time for us to get find the consultant and to start the project rolling and all that kind of stuff. So what kind of timeline are you looking at in terms of when you need the money?
Well, we're more than likely our goal is to be under construction this year. So, and we also understand that this money is really the last dollar going into the project anyway, because you're not going to go anything isn't really going to get dispersed until everything is completed and all the requirements are met. So, and that will probably take another 18 months from now.
Okay, so if
So
we
even
needed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
If we needed 6 months to find the consultant and to make the plan and all that kind of stuff, that would be okay in terms of your moving forward.
I think it should be fine for us. Our goal is we can find that those resources won't be required right away anyway. We're not going to be spending 100% of the construction costs right away. We're planning on starting some site work. Again, this is our own kind of using our own funds doing this level of work. We've already spent our own funds on all the soft costs and some of the site prep work already. That we haven't closed on a loan or anything like that yet.
Shardul, is
That's
it
it for me.
possible to give us some more exact figures to show why it wouldn't work without the the 50,000 per bedroom, or even 25,000 per bedroom, just to show why the market rate apartments can't, basically make the whole project work to cover the subsidized or the discounted apartments. I mean,
I think the main reason is that you're typically not running at 100% vacant, in terms of renting all the units. You build in a vacancy rate of about 10%, which is about the national average for over
often
55 housing.
5%. Yeah,
What was that?
it's often 5%.
Right, but the over 55 in the market data in the United States is roughly 90% right now. That right,
But each region is
90%
very
occupancy.
each region is very specific. It'd be good to look at a local reports.
Yeah, and it's very limited because there really isn't that in our area. There really isn't that great of data. The closest one I could find was Hartford, which was around 86%, which was about 14% vacancy. And I don't know what Worcester is like, but Springfield doesn't have a lot of data on this information. Generally, general apartment vacancies is a little different. Again, over 55 is you're limiting, it's a limitation of your tenant. So instead of having 300,000 people as prospective, of the population, you're only going to have about 35% of them be prescribed. So you're dealing with a smaller population of people that you're going to be marketing towards compared to let's say an apartment building without any restrictions. But and then on top of that, you have to carry some level of reserves for replacement, which is again around 5%. So when you go and add all those things up, it's a break-even project for us. Uh, when you go and factor all those in, I can go and provide you with an analysis of all the costs and everything, but this isn't. Again, we're doing this as a project that is I think going to be successful, long term, but in the short term there is quite a bit of risk and construction cost, inflation, all those other things. It's definitely going in a direction which, by the time that this project is done, it's going to end up being costing a lot, somewhat more than what we're budgeting for currently.
Other thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes, Amy.
So, and this is kind of maybe for even Mark Dunn a little bit, because my question is, how is this different? The town gave money to Valley CDC for their affordable housing. Now, I know that they are all affordable housing, but I feel like this project, even though it's only had the 7 units, because they have a restriction of age, they have restrictions on the entire thing that I didn't know how the last I know it came out of the money I believe, did not come out of CPA, but it came out of the trust fund. But how did they come up with the dollar amount, and what was that whole theory, and how did they handle that? That was my question on that. So, and how is it much different than this project?
Mark, you're muted.
Amy, I could be speaking out of my hat, but my recollection with the Valley CDC project was that they were going to be applying for state funding to make their project work, and the state likes to see a certain amount of community buy-in, and so that's how I believe the planning board came up with what it was comfortable to give. Kind of like Chardou has already said, this is kind of new territory for Hadley. I've only been on the planning board for, I think, maybe 8 or 9 years, but it's my understanding that we haven't allowed apartment style building for decades. And actually, we've never allowed it by our zoning, only through the 40B process have we had those apartment buildings built. And I would just, moving on from Amy's question, and I would just share for Shardul, I see how you view the need, but I would just prepare you that at town meeting, you'll have to defend this. And the kinds of things that you might hear in response would be, you're doing this for the town. Well, the town worked with you to open up a specific zoning and where you wanted it zoned to allow the density that worked for you. So the town really has been working with you for this, and the voters may say you're a developer um, as altruistic as your family may be, you are still classified in most people's eyes as at profit developers, and so um, they may not want to invest in your base operation more towards what I had approached the family about, which was to incentivize bumping you from the required 15% up to 20% to which would really benefit the town if we could count every unit as affordable on our SHI. So um, you've got a great location. I would be surprised if once you're open, you have vacancy issues because uh, it's a great way for people that want to be in or near Northampton um, to have the best of both worlds. And the other thing that people might say is ultimately you're a private owner, you can raise your market rent, as we talked about earlier, to make your profit margin work. And that's, you talked about break even. They might say, but what's the amortization, to break even in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years? Those are all numbers only you know, and that the town doesn't. So they might be skeptical if they're not getting that much more benefit. So anyway, I probably said too much already.
I have
No,
one more. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Amy.
So I mean, this is good. Thank you, Mark, for answering some of those. I do believe that it doesn't matter on apartments. It doesn't matter if there's 7 or if there's 10 or if there's 20 affordable units for the town. I mean, it matters to the people that are coming in to get them. But I believe we count as the town, we count all the units, all 50 units. Unlike the other project, which is condos. Condos, you could only count, you can't count them as the whole units. But the other projects that we have in town, such as all those where we have the 10%, we only have a small percentage, but we count the entire project. So we count all the units, even the non-affordable ones, because it's the project. I believe that's how it works. But some of the other things with those projects is there's a time limit. So I do like this, that he is saying he is going to keep it forever. That is a great thing. But and I do believe the other project is they have investors. It's a nonprofit, but the money ends up coming from where they got the money is from the investors. So I think there's a lot to think about with some of these housing projects, and this is one of the first ones. It's like the second one, but I think we have to come up with a plan. I mean, and also it should work together with the housing trust fund, because they're going to be coming either to that fund or this fund. But it's something that we have to understand and come up with a plan. Once you start setting precedent, such as what we already gave money out, we have to come up with, how did you calculate that money, or where is that, why did you give that money, so anyways, those were just my thinking on some of this. I'm not really sure. It was the first, I'm kind of not sure where to go with this, but I wanted to throw out some of those numbers. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy. Mark, I just want to say, I respect everything that you said, and you're 100% correct. And we're not looking for, if we are, accepted or rejected in this, it's no reflection on our opinions that town is working with us or not working with us. I guess that's not our argument in this case. Our argument is really more about there's analysis, and there's all these things that we did to put this project forward, and we're obviously moving we moved it forward with a high level of confidence. But there is always risk, and for us, this would just help us reduce that risk and go and create a more successful project. If everything you said is correct, you're right. Everything will work well. And I think in terms of what you said about raising the rent, I don't think anybody wants even market rent to increase. I think everybody wants obviously things to be in balance, and so that people aren't overly other people aren't overly subsidizing affordable rents to go and make somebody's numbers work. Our goal is to go and create a system where everything's in kind of symbiotic, in terms of balance. It's not overly inflated one way or another. But yeah, this was something that, again, as a resident outside of our development, made me think that there isn't really a clear process. As Amy said, there really isn't a way of doing this, how to approach this, how to apply for something like this. What is the criteria that is really the most important criteria? Because the fact is there are tremendous amount of things that you are entitled to look at. But as developers, especially as smaller local, family-run developers, it has to be a little bit more simple for us to go and put these projects forward to go and help create that motivation to do things, more things like this in the future.
Just a quick note on the housing trust, that they did give funds for the Valley CDC project, and I did check into it a little bit and was told that the 100,000 that came from the CPA was not used, so they wouldn't have to follow the CPA guidelines in terms of, senior housing being over 60 or some of the other things. And Shardul, there's a bit on the Community Preservation Coalition website on what some of the requirements are for housing from the CPA point of view. You might want to take a look at. I mean, I can, if the committee would like me to, I can, Shelley at this housing resource said that, Massachusetts Housing Partnership, and she's the senior program manager for community assistance. She said she'd be glad to take a look at the application and help us figure out even some more questions to ask, some more information. And I could certainly send it on to her, and that's not a cost at this point. But, and then if she says, if you want to go forward with this, you might want to hire a housing consultant. There's some recommendations from the coalition of who to potentially contact. But I could at least do that for the initial if the committee would like me to.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Do we need a motion for this, or you can just do it?
I think I'm not sure. It isn't any funds at this point, so as long as no one has any objections, I'll send that along to her, and Shardul, she has specific things she suggests we ask. I'll send that on to you. But at this point, we'll see you on September 14th, and try to do some stuff between then and here and then. That's our next meeting for our CPA committee meeting. It's a Monday. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, thank you very much for bringing this forward and challenging us.
No worries.
And we'll see where we end up, whether it's for special town meeting or if there's something for annual town meeting in the spring. But we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, before we get to our next two applications, Nate, I know you've been very patient we tend to take a 5-minute break just to stretch a little bit and have, you know,
I've heard it called a hydration break, even though it may be the opposite.
So we're going to do that. So it's 8:27, so 8:32. Please mute, and if you want, do the video as well, just because the recording is still going.
Mary, I'm sorry for what happened. I've never had to put a password in before. I've always just clicked on the link and it opened up and I was there. And I do Zoom meetings all the time with Bates, with our yearbook planning and our reunion planning. So I was just so flustered by not being able to do it. And you're muted, and then I didn't see the password on the email because I didn't look at the
Agenda.
agenda.
No worries.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. I see that now, but I was just looking on the email, not on the agenda. Oh, well.
Yeah.
I'll know better next time.
You know, it's funny.
You know,
when
it's
we're
funny,
both
when
talking,
we're both
we get
talking,
this
we
reverb
get this reverb
between us. I don't know
between us.
why.
I don't know why.
I'm not getting it. That's
Oh,
weird.
I'm hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
But when you're muted,
So I might
When you're
have.
muted, I don't get it.
When I was muted,
When
I
I
didn't
was
get
muted,
it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will look to see if I have another microphone on that I'm not aware of.
Sharon,
Sharon,
it's probably
it's
because
probably because
your
your
volume
volume
on
on
your
your
computer
computer
is
is
too
too
high,
high,
and
and
it's
it's
picking up the
picking up
volume
the
from your
volume from your
speakers and
speakers
putting it
Okay.
back
and
through
putting
the
it back through
microphone.
the
So try
microphone.
Let
So
me
maybe
check
try
that.
turning your
maybe
speakers
turning your
down or
speakers
moving
down
them
or
away from your
moving them
mic
away
if
from
that's
your mic if
possible.
that's possible.
I just did. Did that help?
Let me talk. Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Okay,
Oh, I
but
see.
then, but then I can.
So it was picking up my voice and sending it back through you. Okay, I get it now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can't hear you as well now because of it's softer, but that'll help.
So
Thank
that's
you.
what Andy was saying, that if you wear headphones, then you can
I
turn
can't.
all you want, and then it doesn't reach your mic.
Yeah. No, I hear you, Mark, but I can't wear headphones. I can't put anything over my ears.
Okay. All right, let's see. Adam is
As long as
here,
it's not causing it now.
and Risa. Good. Welcome, Nate. Thank you for your patience through all of our meeting. We're glad you're here, and you've got two proposals. Sherry, if you can mute, it's still picking up some. All right, thank you. We have two. Why don't we start with the big one, which is the multi-use path one, and let you describe the project, and I'll pull up your map as well.
Sure, thanks everyone. Nate Malloy, Town Administrator. This project is for the design and plans and cost estimates for the multi-use paths on Middle Street and East Street. And the town recently completed the complete streets plan, the priority plan for the community. These were identified as ones to add multi-use paths. So, you know, a wider sidewalk for pedestrians and cyclists. We're applying for grants to do this. And so the CPA application would really, you know, not all the money would be needed if we receive the funding. So we've applied for a shared streets grant to, you know, to try to cover most of the cost. It maxes out at 150,000, and the consultant scope of work was about 180,000. So there is some amount we would need to complete it all. We're hopeful we'll receive the grant. We may receive partial funding. You know, we might receive 100,000. We applied for the maximum amount. And the work really is to do everything from, you know, surveying the streets and rights of way to, you know, construction level drawings, knowing that it's ADA compliant, getting all the design specifications ready. Because this is state funding, we have to follow, you know, state standards in terms of design and other aspects of it. So a multi-use path is now 10 feet wide. You know, it has to have, it's essentially it's like a mini road. You know, there's separation requirements from traffic if it's next to the road, tree belt. You know, we'd integrate with the Neurotic Whale Trail, so there's, you know, it's accessible there with the stop. And then on East Street, it would be in road, and so it would be on the shoulder. It wouldn't be a separated path. It would be, thanks, Mary, along the road, and so it would be separated, whether it's by pavement markings. You know, the safer alternative is to actually have physical separation, whether it's, you know, some bollards or some system. That hasn't been determined yet. You know, these are just images of other multi-use paths. I will say, when I was looking for these, I think I was like, oh, of course I'll be able to find an image to show it, and actually took a little bit of narrowing down my searches, because there's so many images of what they could look like, but it wasn't really accurate to what it would look like in Hadley. And so these most closely resemble what could happen in town, even though they're not from around here necessarily. And again, these are, you know, high priority projects in the complete streets plan. You know, the idea is to connect Route 9 with the rail trail, with the senior housing, with the elementary school, and eventually create a loop to Rocky Hill Road. So really it becomes a, you know, multi-use loop through town. And, so we're seeking funding for the first phase. We would go out for construction grants as well. We may come back to CPA. A lot of communities in the application, there's a few referenced, they've been using CPA money for both design and construction of similar paths around the state, whether it's for, Concord just did it for the bridge over Route 2, actually. That's now a bike trail. So we're just kind of in phase one. We've done, a concept design to ground truth it, to get some, some estimates, but it isn't more than that. So, this is taking kind of the idea of this to get it ready to move forward in a different phase.
Comments from thank you very much, Nate. So on Middle Street, it would be widening the sidewalk a little, which has a lot of space. And then East Street, which doesn't have it at all, sidewalks, it would be the in-road, is what you said. And this is just north of Route 9? It's not?
Right, just north of Route 9, right. And to clarify, on Middle Street, kind of where North Lane comes in,
right.
The road, there's the pavement to the road, and then there's what's the right-of-way, what is part of the roadway. It usually includes some green space in the sidewalk up past North Lane and getting closer to the elementary school. The path would be closer to the road, and at some point along that curve, it would be, it wouldn't be in the road, but there'd still be a curve, but it wouldn't be as wide of a tree belt, just given the nature of where the right-of-way lines are. And again, that's kind of why the survey is needed. The roadway isn't necessarily in the center of the right-of-way, and so the space you have on either side of the pavement varies along the road.
One thing I really liked about a couple of the line items was that there'd be listening sessions and public feedback, and talking to cyclists and neighbors, and that would be really an important part of this.
Right. Yeah, we would. I would say that because we have a complete streets plan, we have to follow those guidelines. Just as Hadley's a green communities, we now follow green communities guidelines, say in terms of recycling or buying products. We're trying to meet the standards for these multi-use paths. And so, the state standard recently changed to be 10 feet wide, which seems pretty wide, but really, 5 feet for each side. If you have two, people walking side by side and a cyclist, you really do need the space. A few years ago it was 8 feet, and I think, 15 years ago it was maybe only 6 feet wide for two directional traffic, which seems really narrow now that you only have 3 feet in each direction.
Andy?
Well, first, Nate, I want to welcome you to Hadley, and it's nice to meet you and to have you with the CPA committee. And the first thing you got to do is get the picture of Amherst Town Hall off of your background.
That's so funny. I will. This is actually, I'm still on. This might be my Amherst account still. I just logged into the meeting. Let me change it right now. I didn't even realize that.
I was going to say you should talk to Mark Dunn and get his.
won't help you in the future. Do things in Hadley to have the.
Let me change my background. Gosh, I hadn't even noticed.
Well, you don't have to do it right now. I was on the Hadley Bike Committee when there was one for 8.5 years during the reconstruction of the Neuwatic Rail Trail. So I am thrilled that you are proposing what would be Hadley's first bike infrastructure that's owned by the town. So good luck getting this through. But we will do what we can to help you. So just to make sure that I understand it, it's Middle Street is a separated path with
right.
A
the
curb.
idea is that the idea is that for most of it, it would be, it's like a sidewalk, right? There'd be a tree belt of varying width between the curb and then the multi-use path. So in some instances, it might be 10 or 12 feet from the road, and then it'll get narrower, but it would be separated from the road itself.
Okay, kind of like the pathways on the Route 9 where they rebuilt it, right? So
yes.
there's
Yep.
the
Right.
asphalt, the trees, the grass,
Mhm.
and the
Right.
curb. And then on East Street, it's just the striping.
Yeah, what the consultant said, given the way the road is built and, right, the nature of the right of way, it would be they call it an in-road bike lane. So it'd be something like these images are showing here. There isn't enough width to really, there's no curbing on the road now. So there's,
Sure.
yep.
Sure. Well, I don't want to get too into the details of this. What about on Rocky Hill Road? Is that what the study is going to determine, whether it's off-road or on-road?
We haven't done that amount of research or assessment. And so, I know speed is a, consideration, vehicular speed on these roads. And so, either way, if it was in-road or off-road, there'd be consideration for the safety of the users. But we haven't determined on Rocky Hill Road what the best approach would be, or north of the elementary school. So really, the phase on Middle Street ends a little beyond the entries to the elementary school, and then what's north of that, is really what, I think I think there's enough room to be off the road. Rocky Hill, again, I don't know how wide the right of way is beyond the pavement edge, so I can't.
What about just connecting the elementary school and the public safety complex and not
Yeah,
going on Rocky Hill Road?
I'm making a note of that. I think I'd say yes, and the question would be, could we do both? Going across the grass, to make it accessible, you do need an improved surface. So, ideally it would be pavement. It could be another surface, but then there's maintenance costs. But as the cursor is going there, it looks like a logical connection. So I think it's something to bring up with DPW and the consultants and everyone and say, well, is this one way we can make it work?
So I'm sure that those kinds of suggestions will come up in the public hearings.
Right.
And people will ask
yeah,
why this, why that, why not this, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, all that stuff.
I do like that idea though. I want to.
I don't know how many kids ride their bikes to school, but there's a whole lot of sports games that go on there as well that people may ride their bikes to, and it sure would be nice to have it feel very safe. Cars do go, especially in Rocky Hill, can go quite fast.
Right. Even though that's the flat section, they don't slow down.
Yeah.
I don't know how many kids ride their bikes to school either, but there'll be a lot more after this after this project's completed.
Well, I'm number 1, Rocky Hill. So I'll chime in. And my mother's number 3. And I try to walk 10,000 steps 5 times a week. And I sometimes go that route. So, and it's, I pray making the turn onto River Drive and walking along there. I sometimes just cut through the neighbor's yard right on the corner just to avoid it because it feels so dangerous. And if you can see from historical things, how many accidents have happened on that corner. So, my first, I guess, opinion of it was excitement that I would actually have a walkway, to walk along it. But I was trying to envision how it would be. So I would be interested to see how it would lay out, because obviously it would need to stay on my side of the road, I would think, rather than crossing over Rocky Hill. So
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. I think I agreed that I'd wanted to minimize crossings. Like I said, we haven't gone that far. The prioritization plan we did for complete streets identified streets in town based on a few public meetings and input from different constituents. Where are the priority streets? So there's more in town. To me, this one makes a lot of sense given what it connects to. But it wasn't. They didn't go as far as saying what exactly that path or sidewalk would look like on every street.
That's what the study is for.
Right.
Sort of make those determinations of what's possible.
Right.
I didn't even know we had a complete streets program, and I'm a cyclist and everything, so I'd like to take a look at it.
it was just finished, believe it or not, submitted to the state for approval, I think in June. So it's not, I think it's like phase 2 of the Complete Streets Plan. The first one was to do a study and a plan, and the next one was to do a priority plan, actually determining, what are the top 20, 40, whatever priorities in town. And so we just submitted phase 2 to the state in June. I just started working here, and it was wrapping up. So I didn't know that either. It
Well,
makes
kept
us
it a
makes the town
secret.
eligible for funding, is what
Yeah.
So this project, if it's right now, it's to do the study and get the feedback and move along to come up with construction ready plans. And then the next phase would be to build it. And
Right.
you said there's probably other funding outside of CPA that is available, or
Sure, yeah, there's shared streets grants, there's complete streets grants. If the town, there's a few things we can do as safe routes to school, which could be used. There's housing choice money. So there's, a number of state grants that are available. I'm not sure it qualifies for federal funding, but, I think there's about a half dozen state funding sources that we'd apply to. I mean, I'm actually amazed at how expensive it is to construct these. That's just given the cost of everything these days. But yeah, so I just wanted to, I didn't really want to forewarn you, but just say that we probably come back to CPA for a match. What I found talking to state programs is a local match helps the grant applications be really competitive. And so, we'd want to be considerate in terms of what we're requesting, but, say the construction cost is $1 million, we ask for 100,000. I think that local amount is a good leverage to the state funding and makes applications more competitive. And I don't know exactly what the future request would be, but that's just an example.
right.
Well, that's the
And-
way we like to do things in the Hadley CPA, is that first you get money for the plan, and then you get money to implement the plan. And the plan helps you get the consensus that you need to get something across the finish line. So,
And also maybe the town voting to do the plan helps a lot. The state, these grants know that the town is backing it.
right.
Yeah, no, they were, when we applied, our consultants, this is mostly with, Public Works had been managing most of this. I put in these CPA applications. I think it's a great way to try to, supplement local budgets and, the funding. And they said that, the town's really taking the right steps. So, it's to the credit of people who have been doing this before me. We did the plan where, it checks a lot of boxes. And so our consultants were pretty optimistic we'd secure funding. I just, when we met, they said it's been really competitive the last few years. So for one of these grant programs, they had the most applications they've ever received. So that I know more communities are trying to get funding. So every little bit helps.
So the 181,500 is if you receive no grants? Did I get
Right.
that right? And then
Yes,
if
yeah.
you do get the grant you've applied for, then you wouldn't need all of this from CPA. Is that
Right. The maximum grant award is 150,000. They could reduce it,
Okay.
to 100,000, depending on, how much they, maybe that they want to distribute the funding to a certain number of communities. And so it could be that we have a partial award of 100,000 and we need 80,000. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we'll get something out of the grant program. But
If the CPA or if town meeting approves the full 181,000, does that reduce what the state's likely to give us because we already have funds available, or is that not really a factor?
I wouldn't say it's a factor yet. I think, you could always make these votes conditional, at town meeting so that they're, whether or not we get the grant. I can check in on that. When we told our consultants we were applying and they help other communities apply, and I was a representative from Mass DOT, they said, yeah, they didn't seem concerned at all
Okay.
that, it would reduce our application chances.
And, with the 181,500, if it's fully approved at town meeting and you only need 80,000, then it just reverts back to CPA. So,
Right.
that's, yeah, good. Well, it's wonderful you're going for the grants. That's a huge
And it's good
help.
that they're state grants, because the federal grants for this kind of projects might not be around too much longer.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions? Good. All right. Well, let's move on to the last application, which is also from Nate. Let me just pull it up here.
Sure. So the second application from the town is for $30,000 to write a new open space and recreation plan. You know, the current plan was completed in 2014 or 13. The state now allows them to be good for up to 10 years. Previously, it was only 3 to 5 years. So in any event, the town's plan is out of date. You know, I think there's two reasons to do this. You know, it's really like to me, it's a master plan for open space and recreation, you know, conservation, farming, active and passive recreation. And so the idea is you'd have a community process and come up with a document that with maps and narrative explains, you know, goals and objectives for the next, you know, up to 10 years for the community. It's also a requirement if you want to apply for certain state funding for conservation and recreation projects. And so right now the town is ineligible to apply for some pretty big grant programs because our plan is out of date. And so the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission did provide a scope of services and an estimate that they, you know, gave to Southwick earlier this year. And so they're in the process of helping Southwick update their plan. So, you know, theirs was 25,000. I was thinking 30,000 in Hadley only because our plan is really out of date. I'm not sure how much can be used, you know, reused from the plan. And, you know, again, we're also applying for a technical assistance grant to try to offset those costs. It hasn't come out yet. It's a pretty competitive application round. Hadley being a small rural community is in our favor to apply for this technical assistance grant. It could be, you know, $20,000 or $25,000 toward the development of the plan. And again, CPA funds would be used to supplement whatever the grant wouldn't fund. I think, you know, it's funny. I've told a few people about this, and, you know, some members of the select board are like, man, more plans, huh? And I'm like, look, but the idea here is to me, it's a great guiding document, and then it helps the town be eligible for other funding. And so it's not a too big, in my mind, it's a good investment to try to leverage funding for the next 10 years. You know, and I think the cost is pretty reasonable. Typically, we work with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. They're the local regional planning agency. I'm not sure if they did the current plan, but they are pretty familiar with open space and recreation plans. And, you know, they seem like they'd be willing to help the town both apply for the grant to offset the cost and also do the plan. And I think, you know, communities will use the planning board or conservation commission. There may also be a separate open space and recreation commission formed just for the life of the plan to help, you know, with public input process and other things and review the document. That hasn't been decided. I think really the idea to me would be to, you know, get this plan in shape and then see where we go. So the town has a housing production plan that's pretty recent, you know, and it's been used. To me, the open space and recreation plan is, again, a really good guiding document for the community.
What happens if you don't get the money? The plan has to be done anyway?
It doesn't have to be done. I think, you know, when the town applies for grants, whether it's, say, the shared streets grant or for other grants, the state often asks, like, what do you have done? You know, they have a list of, you know, checklists, like what plans do you have? You know, do you have this kind of zoning? Do you allow these things? It's just yes or no. And so, you know, it could make applications for other programs less competitive. It doesn't, you know, other than that, there's really not a penalty. I think to me, the kind of importance of it is that we're losing out on opportunities to apply for funding. And so, you know, we're not hurting the town by not having it. We're just not providing the town the opportunity to, say, apply for funding to put a new playground in somewhere. Or if we want to make another trail connection on conservation land, we're not eligible to apply for some pretty good grant funding because we don't have an open space and rec plan. And so it's not, you know, some communities may not have ever had one, right? And it's not like not doing anything wrong. I think it's a tool that can be used to then, you know, kind of expand your opportunities for certain things. But, you know, we're not like being necessarily penalized by not having it.
In the past, these kinds of plans and reports just came out of the regular town budget. Why are you coming to the CPA now? Is it because of the tightness of the budget, or is there a particular, I don't know, CPA reason?
Yeah, I mean, it's a CPA eligible project, so a lot of communities have been using it that way. Applying for CPA funds, because it really is, the plan is really guiding, open space and recreation and conservation. So CPA eligible projects. So typically from your open space and rec plan, you develop an action plan, and a lot of those things within that are CPA eligible projects. And so I think communities, right, given economic times or what's eligible, how do you fund certain things? And so to me, this is an opportunity, a choice to use CPA funds. We could try to request it out of capital or something, but to me, the question would be, well, if that were the case, could you split it between CPA and capital, right? How do you, there's probably a few different ways to fund this plan. I think CPA is one of them. Like I said, we're also applying for a grant. I'm hopeful we'll actually receive some funding there as well. But it could be funded somewhere else. I just think it's a really a good use of CPA funds to then be able to do other projects and leverage more grant funding in the future for the community.
Okay. Well, I certainly support open space and recreation and all those things, and it's good to have a plan to know where you're going in the future.
Other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I'll just add that I didn't get my words in earlier. I'm very excited about both of these applications that Nate's put forward. So I hope we can work out any questions or bugs and get these on the warrant.
Nate, it's great to have you here. And boy, if you're already in 2 months doing these 2 applications, I wonder what we'll get next spring.
Full disclosure, I met with Mary, Jennifer and I met with Mary, and I said I had an idea about like 6 applications for the town. And, they weren't ready, but hopefully in the future we can get them in good shape.
Well, it's great to have you on board. I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And I will say, yeah, your previous applications, there's a lot to consider, say with affordable housing and the ones tonight. And so Shelley is a good resource for Mass Housing Partnership. And I know sometimes they'll provide free pro forma review. And so I don't know if they still offer that, but in the past they had. So they could take a project budget and they would review it for kind of income and expenses and just give a pretty good synopsis of where they thought it was, if it worked and everything. So I don't know if they still do, but
I think they might.
They're a good resource.
Great. No, that's good. I'm glad you've had experience with them. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this?
So Nate, usually the CPA committee does not, what's the word I'm looking for? Address town meeting about the pros and cons of a particular project. So we'd either expect you to sort of sell it or introduce it, or have somebody else in town talk about the project before the discussion and the vote in town meeting. So if you want to, one of my roles as the vice chair is to help the applicants get to yes. So if you want to ever talk or just brainstorm ideas or talk about the process, I'm happy to fill you in on how we've done things in the past.
Oh, that'd be really helpful. Thanks.
And your map and potential of what the bike paths might look like are really helpful too, just for understanding.
Right. Well, once the plan is finished, he'll have a lot more detail with renderings and the drawings and the whole 9 yards, and every detail will be laid out.
Yeah, I asked the consultants to give me what they have, and it wasn't as useful as the diagram I came up with. I was hopeful it would have something else. They didn't have much.
Yeah, well, they like to be paid first before they work.
I know. I asked them if they could come up with a rough plan showing the bike path.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed it. Was there a particular reason for the phase one, phase two, or just kind of low hanging fruit and then tackle uh, uh, the more challenging loop there?
Yeah, I think, yeah, Mark, you have it pretty accurately. I think just that northern section, phase two on Rocky Hill Road is just, I think, a little trickier. And, we're trying to get to those two connection points, the public safety and then the schools. I like the idea of a connection there through the properties. I mean, it could be both. And some of it was just cost, what we've already done. So I think, the plan really did show that loop. I think, I don't, if we complete phase one, I'm hoping we then, we cycle to phase two pretty quickly and not lose momentum, or at least make some connection between the two streets.
Rocky Hill Road must be a scary road to bike on, I would think, especially with
Yeah,
the
we
curves and.
I see people walking on there, and especially up around Brenda's on that S curve. I see people walking. That's been a. I would love to see eventually a sidewalk all the way. Although I don't know how we do it without it taking. So it's tight in a lot of those spots. But this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think, Hadley, it's the historical settlement pattern, right? These were probably some old farm roads that then turned into paved roads. And I don't think there's any, at the time, they probably just said, oh, here's the road, the right of way, not thinking about like, oh, should we have it be 10 feet wider for a sidewalk? And so now there's limitations on how to expand it or change it. I think, right, I agree. It would be great to have a sidewalk on more streets.
In Hockenham, the sidewalk is what everybody mows along the field in front of their house.
Yeah, I take River Drive north. I live in South Deerfield, and I see, people jogging their dogs, on River Drive. There's no shoulder. There'll be
Right.
a family out there with bikes and their kids, and you really have to pay attention.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, we'll see you September 14th. And
Yes. Yeah.
thank
Thanks
you
so much.
for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.
All righty. Well, for the committee, it is 9 o'clock. We try not to go over 2 hours. There's, we can do a few more things, or there's not that much more. We can leave it for next meeting. Hopefully we get through, voting on the 4 applications and still have extra time then. So we either go a little longer now, or we risk having to go longer next time. So it's, what would you let people like to do?
Did we actually take the vote to reestablish the officers?
Yeah. Yes, we did the roll call.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I must have blacked out there.
Sherry, we elected the same slate. If you were dying to be one of those positions, speak up now. Okay. What would you, do you want to go another 15 minutes or do you want to stop? Go another 15.
What's next on the list?
So next is some outstanding project updates. Let me pull that up from
I'm okay with going 15 more.
okay.
Yeah.
Here is our what's outstanding, and the books have been closed, but there's nothing else that has changed in terms of bills paid on these. So this is basically as of 2026. The CPA payroll is going to start at 8,400 for FY 2027.
Mary, I don't think you're sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm not. Thank you. Okay. Is that better? Is that big enough for people? I can make it. Is that good?
It
All right,
didn't get
cool.
any bigger.
You like it bigger? All right. I'll try 175. How's that?
Okay.
Thank you. So it'll be 8,400. But we haven't had a land use coordinator for, July and August. They did have some finalists that withdrew their applications, but they have more applicants, so they're going to be interviewing soon for the land use. So hopefully, certainly by town meeting, or we'll see when it gets filled. And then we have our 5,000, again, this will recycle. We didn't use 1,222. The bulk of what was spent, besides the 1,750 for the dues for the community coalition, was additional payroll. That's why we upped it to the 8,400. The clock repair is done. I asked them if we can claw this back. The steeple work is in process. That should be, they're waiting on some of the fancy dental work to be finished made, and then they'll be hoisting up the two big pieces you see behind the church onto the steeple. So they're moving along with that. The audio tour is still in process. The town space needs is on hold, but they do have time to still work on that. So we'll see what happens with that. But we're still within their 3 years. The Phelps farmhouse, I have a nice update from her. Let me get it. Here it is. This is from Karen Zempler, who's chair, Sanchez Epler, who's chair of the Porter Phelps Huntington Board, and a professor at Amherst College. As I believe we told you, we received a $100,000 Bruin grant from the National Park Service through the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to replace the failing timbers of the Kitchen L. The engineer designed plans for that project are presently with the National Park Service awaiting their approval. Once approved, we need to complete that project in fall of 2026 and believe that the money we have received through the Bruin grant and an additional $10,000 Mass Preservation 1772 fund grant we also received for work on the L will be sufficient to fund that project. So we happily should not need to draw on CPA funds for the L stabilization. Meanwhile, we also had a successful grant application from the Massachusetts Historical Commission's Mass Preservation Project Fund to fund a historic structure report for Phelps Farm. Once we have completed the urgent stabilization work that will keep the building standing, and then we need a thorough HSR to enable us to take on any future work on the farmhouse in a responsible, historically informed way. The grant from MHC, Mass Housing Commission, will install a 5 or 10-year preservation restriction on the farm now. It is a matching grant, and our intention is to use CPA funds to help with that match. The MHC award is $30,000 for a $60,000 project, and we are hopeful that we may be able to increase that to $40,000 for an $80,000 project. Once we have completed the HSR, we will be able to plan out the next stages of rehabilitation for this historic building. The town of Hadley's support makes all of this possible, and as you can see, we are trying to make the CPA funding stretch as far as we possibly can. So it's great to see that they're getting all these grants, applying for them and getting them, and able to still, make their money go a long way. So that's where they are doing. So it's a slow process, but they have 36,000 left here in their grant. The town hall exterior study has been completed. It was originally 40,000. There's 8,250 left over, and that can be clawed back. I checked with Jennifer and Nate on that. The Hockenham Cemetery, the cemetery committee is meeting tomorrow night, and one thought we're going to discuss is that extra money was for a pillar or some way to recognize the historic stone wall that came down. And one thought we're going to talk about is to do maybe a plaque just acknowledging the CCC work that was done. So hopefully we'll have some more answers by that's supposed to be used by, the fall, before September 14th. The back fence is done. There may be little more work that it needs to be done to finish it up completely. So they have time to use it, but a lot of that will end up getting clawed back. The base for the North Hadley Bell, they've bought some materials, so hopefully that's coming along. The Golden Court doors, Risa reported that they started today, replacing the back doors. So this 150,000 will cover the back doors. So that's great that they've gotten it started. And I'll drop off the sign that says, paid with, in part with CPA funds. The steeple we talked about. The APRs just take so long. They're waiting on the paperwork for some, and the toppler, I was told a while ago, was sent to the town accountant for payment, so it hasn't been paid, so there may be more to that, but they're in process. It's out of our hands. It's when the state gets it through to be processed by the town. The 4393 of the Goff Bible can be clawed back. The archivist for the Historical Society to help curate all that's in there is working hard. Half was paid already, and there's still more work. And the Lake Warner remediation, I have from Brian Pearson, everything is proceeding on schedule. The town of Hadley has paid 50% of the approved CPA amount directly to ponds and lakes. And then we look forward to providing you with a final report towards the end of the year, and we will submit the final invoice at that time. So they're coming right along with that. So we're in good shape. It'd be nice to just take a quick vote to claw back the 8250 for the town hall exterior study and the 4393 for the extra from the Goff Bible. We may be able to claw back the 250. I'm waiting to hear back on that. So, but if we could vote on these two, I'll let the town accountant know. We don't have to go through town meeting to do that.
I would so move.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Alrighty. So Mark and Andy for the 8250 from Article 15, 2024, and the 4393 for Special Town Meeting 2025, Article 9, additional balance. So any discussion? I'll do a roll call. Amy?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Mark?
Affirmative.
Sharon?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Risa?
Yes.
And Mary is yes. Very good.
Always happy to get money back.
It adds up, and we'll put it from the right category. Good. So there's that one. And I did the land use coordinator update. May 11th, we had our public information session on the CPA. Kayla did up with a lot of help from Andy, did up a really nice slideshow that we presented, and Mark was there. And we didn't have a lot of people come, and last time I checked, it wasn't yet up on the Hadley Media, but it may be now. I know they've been doing this and that and everything, but they did record the first part of it, which was the presentation. Both Andy, and Kayla each took a section, and I did Kayla and I did more of the technical stuff, explaining it, and Andy did a really good job of making people feel like we really want to work with them, and we really want ideas, but we had very few people there. But after the formal presentation, which was all that was recorded, then we had a long discussion too, which was really interesting on what kind of projects and how to go about doing it and stuff like that. So Mark, I don't know if you or Andy part of the reason for bringing it up is to give you that feedback, but also otherwise it never ends up in the minutes anywhere because it kind of came about after our last meeting, so I certainly wanted it to be documented, and it was on May 11th. And you know, we've got the presentation on Kayla's computer if we want to do something similar in the future, but it was, you know, it was some good discussions, I thought.
We're supposed to do it once a year, some kind of public outreach and meeting. So
Yeah.
so that was good. And it was also good to know that the CPA has a pretty good reputation in Hadley. You know, I mean, other than the people who hate all taxes and don't want money spent on anything, people, they're not so clear on exactly what we're doing, but they know one or two projects that they support, and they're glad that we're doing it. So it was good to get that, you know, positive feedback from people.
Good. Mark, do you want to add anything, or?
No, I don't have anything of substance to add. I would just say that if we can create our own projects, I would create a virtual plaque in honor of Mary and Andy for all that they've contributed in keeping the ship right.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a great committee, so it takes all of us, that's for sure.
Well, mostly
right.
Mary.
Well, it's 9:18, so let's stop. And next time we'll hopefully have the minutes, and we'll do just vote on the applications. I'll work on getting some more information from the Shelley at the Massachusetts Housing Resources, and we'll then talk a little bit about town meeting and what other projects might, you know, be in the works. So that's it. So thank you, everyone. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Andy?
Yes.
I'll second.
No,
All right.
I'll yield to Adam. Second.
All right. We don't need it. Just raise your hand. Yes, all in favor. All right. Thank you very much. It's great to see you all, and have a good couple weeks, and September 14th and October 22nd. So those are
Okay.
2 dates coming up.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay. Thank
And,
you.
and just a heads up that a week from today is UMass move-in.
Oh, yeah. Go out to eat now.
Yeah, bad news.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.